Okay, we're going to completely start over. I'd like to call to order this work session of the Urban Renewal Agency. It's a work session, so no public comment will be taken, and the board will take no formal action. The topic of tonight's Urban Renewal Agency work session are building grants, and we're going to turn it over to our Economic Development Coordinator, Miles Glowacki.
Thank you, Chair. Next slide, please. Tonight's agenda, we'll go over the Vision 2040 plan, purpose, background, the applications. You'll have time to score the applications and talk about the rubric, and then give any other program feedback towards the end. The 24 actions include 1.2, increase the volume and diversity of commercial business development, and 1.10, city incentive programs to support retain small local businesses. Purpose of the presentation is to provide an overview of the building improvement grant, review the EDC's recommendations on the grant awards, score the applications, award grants, and highlight potential program changes for next year. Just some background, the URA established a building improvement program in June of 24. We awarded our first grants last March in 2025, and then the window for this grant cycle was open from July to December. And the Economic Development Commission met at their last meeting and reviewed the applications and made recommendations. The purpose of the building improvement program is to provide financial assistance projects within the urban renewal area that do all these things. And we expanded this list last year to include some of the board's recommendations. The eligibility requirements, so all the applications you see tonight went through the eligibility requirements and they meet those. But includes that it must be in the urban renewal area. It must be a for-profit business or nonprofit that's paying city taxes. And the property must be used in whole and part for commercial purposes. So it's not for necessarily residential uses. We put a cap on the amount of funding a single property can receive in 5 years, and it's $105,000. The project must comply with all local regulations, and you have to answer all the questions to be eligible, and the application doesn't let you proceed unless you answer all the questions. Next slide, please. So we received 7 qualified applications this cycle, and there's a map. You can see they're kind of spread out across the district. We have $350,000 budgeted this year, and there's $337,000 in project asks or grant requests. The anticipated match from the applicant is $342,000, so over $500,000 in potential investment in the URA through this program for this cycle. Next slide, please. So before we go through the applications and score them, is there a minimum score that you'd like the applications to meet to even be considered by the board? This came up a little bit at EDC, if there should be a minimum threshold that applications have to score. Currently, there isn't one, and in this situation where there's more funding than asked, it may be beneficial to establish one, or in situations where there's more requests than funding available, it may in the future help clarify which projects meet the best qualification.
Is there any feedback from council for staff? I have a quick question. So are you asking, I guess, how do I want to put this? So did we communicate with the applications for the people, the owners, that there would be a minimum score? Or are we going to say after the fact, like, hey, we're scoring this now, but the council decided that you had to reach?
It would be after the fact that you would have to reach. The only thing we provided on the website was the rubric. That's it, as you see it.
Okay, would council like a minimum scoring? Go ahead, Counselor Schimmel.
I think to your point, Mayor, not this cycle, plug it in, if we're going to plug it into the next cycle. But my question would be, I certainly want to go along with the staff's recommendation. How did you arrive at that recommendation? Was it based on the discussion in the EDC?
I think it was more based on questions that came out of the EDC. And so we looked at what would make sense. And that's just a recommendation. It's not necessarily the perfect number. If the board has a different number in mind, a discussion about it.
So I heard from Council Schimmel that he would be, not for this round of applications, but moving forward, open to an idea of a minimum score for eligible funding. And I saw a few people, so can I get a thumbs up if you agree with that? Okay. I don't know why we had a microphone down.
Different. If we could have a little bit longer conversation about that. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I just want to know a little bit more.
Sure, we'll have time at the end of the presentation to talk about this change and other changes.
Okay.
Yeah. This was just to set the bar for this cycle. And if we're going to wait, then we'll have that conversation.
So how are we going to decide what a cutoff is if we're not going to fund a project? If we don't
So
have
you wouldn't
a
have
minimum?
a cutoff point. You'd have other reasons why you chose not to fund the project.
Okay, thank you.
So do you guys have what you need from us?
Yeah, I do for this point. The EDC met and scored the applications at January 8th meeting. The EDC found all 7 projects to be worthwhile investment and recommends that the board fund all projects fully. During the scoring process, the commission raised several questions, and we'll talk about those at the end of the presentation. And there were 8 applications that were received during the open application period, but this one on North Adair Street is outside the area, and so it therefore wasn't able for consideration. So I'll go through the grant requests that did meet the thresholds, and the packet has more information on all of these, of course. This is just abbreviated. So this is the bakery project. The grant request is about $34,000, and it's for a walk-in cooler and then associated upgrades that are needed for that. They think the building ceiling may need to be raised, and additional electrical upgrades. Uh, 2009 Main Street is...
Miles, can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
Would you rather have us ask you questions after each property or at the end?
After each property, I think.
Okay, then can we go back to the other one? I have a question. So on this property, this is a walk-in cooler. So it only would increase the property value if the person after it needed. I'm just wondering if when we went back to the goals, like of the URA, how many of the goals did this one meet when you guys looked at it? Or
I didn't have like a checklist that they went down and kind of marked which goals. They kind of had a discussion about each one. This one did score the lowest out of all the applications by the EDC. The discussion around it had to do with this would allow this business to expand and stay in Forest Grove. And so there was some discussion about how that plays into it. And also, I think it would trigger the increased tax assessment. The improvement itself triggers the assessment.
can you say that? I don't understand that.
The amount of improvements that they're doing to the site will trigger
County.
the county tax assessor to look at the property and reassess
Oh,
the tax
okay.
rate because it's a substantial.
Got it. Thank you. Are there any other questions with this property? Okay.
This is Taqueria Corona, and it's installation of a new HVAC system. The current one, I don't think works from the application and from being there.
Yeah, we have a question on that one too.
Yeah.
Use the microphone, Councilor Faulkner. Thanks.
I was trying to understand if it's a limitation that there is no HVAC or that the HVAC doesn't work only in the restaurant space, or is it a building-wide HVAC improvement?
It's just the restaurant space.
Okay, so then does that mean that upstairs there is already HVAC, or
I don't know.
there will
This was-
continue?
This was an application from the tenant
Yeah.
of the space, and so
Yeah.
they have their own system downstairs.
Got it. Okay, so it's not building-wide.
It's not building.
Okay.
Any other questions with this? Okay.
Rise is looking for $46,000. They want to do interior and exterior improvements, including uncovering some boarded up windows, adding skylights, doing some interior signage, just updating the entire look of. This is 2038 Pacific, currently Picasso's. They need to replace the outdated wiring and breaker box. This is a safety issue as well as the ability to find new tenants. Picasso's is moving out.
Who's moving out?
Picasso's.
Okay.
This is the Edward Jones building. They are expanding their footprint, adding another office, adding another financial advisor, and doing ADA improvements.
So they've already started on improvements, so we could go ahead and,
They started, my understanding from them, and this would be clarified in the scope of work that they do, is that the improvements they're doing now they're paying for it, wouldn't be part of this grant.
oh, okay.
It's additional stuff that goes on top of these improvements.
Okay.
yes, but-
Mhm.
This is the Me Time Spa, and they had some trouble with the application, and so I talked to them and kind of helped them through it. They want to do an entire interior remodel. They want to expand capacity, add ambiance, and hopefully add additional employees with expanded capacity. The La Pandorea, this one is construction of 4 new studio apartments at the rear of the property, and then construction of a coffee terrace for the bakery and coffee shop that they want to install. Is that the last one?
What was that? I didn't hear that. Like, wait, can you use a microphone really quick for the people watching?
Is the 2018 this?
Yes.
Yeah, so which one's the right address?
I believe it's 2018,
Okay,
2018.
okay, that's all. I just
Just a
wanted to make
typo.
sure I was seeing it right.
These are the EDC score average, just for your edification. Again, the walk-in refrigerator did score the lowest.
The least.
It scored the least amount of
Okay, I thought you said the most. Sorry.
lowest.
The lowest. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
So at this point, if you have enough to start scoring, we'd ask that you score the project, and then Mariah will collect the scores and we'll put them up on the screen and take an average, and you'll be able to see that. And then have a discussion about what we'd like to do in terms of awarding grants.
Can I ask a just systems question? Counselor Schimmel, you don't score as the staff liaison during EDC. Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're just hearing. Right. Got it. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Okay. So does council have any more questions for staff, or do you want to take the next 5-10 minutes? I don't want to, I remember last time it felt pretty rushed to score. So let's take 10 minutes and then I'll do a check to see where we're at. Does that sound fine? I hear no dissent, so we're going to do it. Okay, great. Thanks. I know.
I don't think they use that language of eliminating blight. It's more about improving. Less about what you take away, more about how you make.
Okay, thank you for waiting for me. So thank you, Mariah, for tabulating the scores. So Mariah has the scores on the board. What do we go? And I'm going to turn back over to Miles for where we go next.
So in the EDC meeting, we looked at the scores and they had a discussion about the projects and why they thought it should be funded or not funded. And then they, by consensus, reached their conclusion. So I thought the same process would work here, where you could have a discussion about which projects, since there isn't a minimum established, which projects you would like to fund.
Okay. Do we want to open up that discussion? Anyone want to go first? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Martinez.
So I know, obviously, 21st had the lowest score. My thought, though, is that it is a cafe establishment building. You know, that's how it's set up. It's been that for a long time. And I'm sure that a walk-in fridge would really be an asset there. So I don't know that we should really have a cutoff. They have the lowest score. That's all I'm trying to get around to. So.
Okay, so Councilor Martinez said that even though they have the lowest score, we don't have a cutoff. And based on the use of the building, it works for what it chooses for. I mean, let's just expedite this a little bit. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Gustafson.
Personally, and this might just be jumping ahead, but I move to approve all of them.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is like, let's expedite this and then figure out how we can make it better next year. Okay, so Councilor Gustafson recommended we approve all applicants. I'm seeing a bunch of head nods. So let's get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Perfect. Consensus is to fund all 7 of the projects. But let's move on to the meat of the discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So as the mayor says, let's move on to the meat of the discussion, which is program considerations for the future. So wanted to look at discussing 3 of the criteria, one being the program eligibility, so what those requirements look like. The second being the scoring rubric, how we score, and the third being EDC recommendations. Staff also has some recommendations and some thoughts about how we can improve the program, but want to make sure that we hear from council, from the board, as we move forward with the program. So next slide, please. So for the board's discussion, these are the current eligibility requirements. Staff has a couple of additional pieces that could be added or amended within the eligibility requirements, including a minimum project cost, creating a point threshold, discussion about doing building improvements versus furniture or equipment purchases, anything about creating jobs or different kinds of jobs, incentivizing different kinds of development, or making a strict prohibition that these funds cannot be used for maintenance and operations, but must be used for capital. This is some of the things that we are considering, but we'd love to hear your opinions, or if anything on that list sticks out for you for us to explore.
Okay, Counselor Faulkner, thanks for sharing the mics. We're one mic down tonight, so the patience is appreciated.
Those sound great, and I have an addition. I think, I was glad that the Panaderia actually picked up on it, because it wasn't I don't know. Anyway, the addition of units, of housing units. I mean, I think that's, to me, the biggest gap in the way we're marketing this, including in our presentation. We didn't include, action 2.5, activate policies around utilizing downtown upstairs apartments per the city's urban renewal plan. I think that's adding housing units to any of these locations is the surest way to get feet on the street and to make sure that to add to a vibrant URA, the area. And so I would like to see that as a very clear delineator, in the next program. And that is like gold, like everybody else is, all the other applications are basically like scored off of that one, if it's included again.
Okay, let's, just for the interest of time, is there consensus on what Counselor Faulkner's recommending?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that that's an eligible piece. What I'm hearing is that just market it that way.
And also, I think when we get around to talking about, maybe scoring rubric, that be elevated as like, that gets a 5, whereas everybody else gets whatever. I mean, whatever the scoring mechanism is.
Yeah.
On this one, that's how we would score.
And I would agree, and I think that's, and I feel like it all intersects, but that scoring rubric, I feel like still isn't very helpful for me. Like, it still isn't, we need a weighted, I don't want to jump ahead, but she says jumping ahead, but if the idea is to increase assessed value, to increase jobs, to get more, then those, when a project meets those things, those are weighted 70%, right? I mean, like, how do you, because the way I see it is I'm like, on the scoring sheet we're using now, it's like kind of like a check, like, okay, well, they have these things and I'm forced to say yes. But then going back to like how my brain works, which is the goal at the end, which one of those is really driving those URA goals? And I think, in a large scheme of looking at this program, that's what I would really like to see, is when we look at the scoring and helping, EDC and ourselves, it's like, I would love staff to come back with a weighted, like, these are the things that move us the most in the shortest amount of time. And so they get higher scores. Because at a certain point, we're going to have to make, like right now, we, frankly speaking, had it pretty easy. We didn't have to cut a project here or there. But if we had too many or not too many, but if we had to cut something, how would we have done it this time? There would have been no way, there's no way for us to do that because we don't have anything weighted and we don't have it clearly delineated. That's Counselor Schimmel.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to would be a matrix that illustrates, what a 5 looks like, what a 4, what a 3, 2, 1, and that I know inherently comes around as the program matures. And I wanted to express earlier that just being able to observe the first 2 cycles of the program, being able to see how Miles has advanced, not just the clarity of the program, but the awareness and the volume of applicants. So I think that's probably a next evolution is just having some matrix that reflects, what the 5, and I think that really what Councilor Falconer said is the 5 for one of these criteria. I don't know if that, Miles or Kim, that makes sense.
It does. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from council? Any other, Counselor Gustafson?
And Counselor Schimmel, I'm sorry, but you may have already said just what I'm going to say. So when we're talking about weighting, you are talking about the 70% for these sections to be weighted against another scoring item that may be not as important. Is that what you're saying? Because
Well, I mean,
that was something that I was an advocate for a while ago, just because there is so many differences on, which one of these are more important. Some of them have more importance to them than others.
yeah, and I think that's what I would ask staff to bring us back is like, what is the best way to do it? Do you weight certain criteria with a higher weight so they get more points, or do you do a traditional rubric, right, that has like this scores a 5, this scores a 3, this scores a 2, and you can get what we want either way, I think. And so, I mean, I would, lean on staff to give us like what approach they feel is the best so that it can be the deal we want. Speaking like a teacher, is we want calibrated scoring. We want EDC and council to score it the same way. Like we need to give our scorers the training, the tools, information they need, that we all are scoring it the same way. Because otherwise, everyone can score this, and this, and we don't really have a clear idea of what we got out of that. So that's what I'm looking for, is to calibrate, like something that's going to help us calibrate so we're all unified in how we score. And it's, yeah, I think I said it well probably the first time.
I think my only question is there's so many different ways to look at it. Like if we're looking at just increasing the taxing on it, or are we looking at it to boost more jobs? Or are we looking at it to, there's so many different facets to it. So it's like we're trying to gauge, let's say, the bakery by Plaid Pantry. It's not really going to create a lot of jobs, but adding 4 apartments to the back of it is going to increase the taxes on it. But there's going to be other ones that might not increase the taxes on it, but it's going to boost a ton of different jobs. So I think it's just a weird, the rubric makes sense, but doesn't make sense at the same time. I don't know if that, it almost is like we need to have, if we're going to do 3 grants, then we do 1 for like boosting jobs, 1 for boosting that helps boost taxes, and 1 that is, you know what I mean? That's just my thoughts. But what are we?
No, you guys finish.
But is
Oh, you.
Well, I apologize, Counselor. I should have interrupted you, but
no, it's fine. We're having dialogue. It's fine. But are we, as a URA, we're supposed to be increasing the tax base for the business for these areas, but yet we're putting on this that it's going to increase employment. So that necessarily doesn't go hand in hand. But if we're looking at it just as a URA, we should be looking at like the little one over there that's going to be increasing the taxes to Taqueria, that's going to be increasing the value of the properties. Increasing the value is not actually looking at whether it's going to produce more jobs or anything like that. If we're looking at it as strictly as the URA should be looking at it. I don't know if that makes sense.
You're talking about shrinking the criteria or the rubric?
Depends on what we're looking at. I like the fact that it's looking at boosting jobs in this area. But as a URA, is that what we're looking at? So, I mean, just food for thought. I'm just looking at it as like a little bit differently. I like the fact that we're looking at it as that through that lens of, is it going to produce more jobs? It's going to do that. But as a URA, is that what our URA is supposed to be doing, or is it supposed to be building the value of the properties?
Okay, did you want to respond, Councilor Schimmel?
No, that's fair comments. The only thing I was going to say was we identified there's 5 that are scored individually, and then they come up with a total or an average, so that and maybe the earlier comment about does the tax assessed value get 75% of the value, that's a multiplier in the overall score. So if that's the ultimate thing, then that one gets 75%. The rest are couched under 25%. That might be hitting on what you're.
That might be a way to address it.
Well, does that sound consistent with the URA program that we're maybe not thinking about?
The only concern that comes to mind is if it becomes a program where you have a rubric and you score it and you've got this amount of money, and so the top score gets this, this, and this, and you just go down the list, you may lose out on projects that may be important in other ways that we're not thinking about, and you kind of tied your hands on those projects. Whereas a method similar to this gives you more leeway as a board to have a discussion about what you want to do with these dollars. So I don't think that you can have it both ways. You can't have a checklist and have a discussion. Just my thought.
Can I ask, wait, I don't want to cut in for anyone. Councilor Gustafson, did you have a comment, or? Hang on, wait for the microphone.
Oh, thank you. Yes, having that discussion is really important, and that overall, are we just not paying attention only to the tax revenue? And to go back to the bakery, that's our example today. Just because I've worked in that bakery, having that new refrigerator will increase jobs because they're trying to look at their catering expansion, and they literally have no more room to do anything, so that will help. Plus the electrical and the environmental, because right now they're using a lot of refrigerators all over the place, and then this would increase that. So it's also figuring out, thinking a little bit deeper, how will this affect jobs? And is that a question, because I don't remember on the application, is that a question, how many jobs do you think this will retain or bring in? Is there a place that we should put something like that in to get their interpretation of what would be kind of an honest assumption on that?
If I may, that bakery is always busy.
Mm-hmm.
La Panadera is hurting. And it's kind of isolated. It's an isolated place. They sell really good stuff. And it would be great to have that coffee shop, something to go with it, because what do we want? What is our goal? We want our businesses to thrive. We don't want them to close down. And some of them will take, a little bit of fixing up the facade, and in the long run, it turns good. It's good for our city to see people, having coffee, talking, community coming together. And that's the vision that I have, and I think we share. and then there are other things, about the taxes and, what would be more valuable. But we have to consider a lot of things, like culturally specific places like Taqueria Corona, like La Panadera, that cater to the entire community. So, I just want to see every business place alive and looking good. That people come here, Forest Grove prospers. And that's what I would like to see.
Thank you. I'm wondering, can staff, I'm just curious, because this is a really good, rich dialogue about how do we move forward. So I'm wondering, has staff talked to other cities with URAs with that have these projects, like have this building improvement project or grants like the bigs, and like how they're doing it? And, what can we learn from them, moving forward to make ours really successful?
But I looked at a variety of programs when I created this to begin with for best practices, and it ranges. So one city will you fill out the application, they check the boxes by staff, and they write you a check. It's that easy. Other cities, they run it like our CEP process, where the person has to come give a presentation and ask for the money and explain the purpose and all. So there's a range there of best practices. So it's really what works best for Forest.
Yeah. So Councilor Faulkner, and then I just kind of want to bring, how much more do we have through this presentation with staff? Because we have another work session. Like, we're constantly always up against
There's just a couple more slides, but I think they actually kind of rehash what the conversation the board has already been. So we have the scoring rubric, but we've already had a robust conversation about the scoring rubric, and I think staff can come back with some recommendations. Next slide. Some EDC comments going into should there be criteria around project feasibility or criteria around different types of job creation, which we discussed. And next slide. And just some next steps.
Okay, cool. So let's try to, I'm not trying to stifle conversation, but let's have some few more questions, comments. Let's try to end this one at 6:30 so we can have our second one at 6:30 to 7. So Councilor Faulkner, and then I think Director Faulkner, and then Director Schimmel. I'm the worst at this name change.
The one thing that I would appreciate for our next conversation is for, staff and for all of us to revisit the plan itself, because I think that there is so much in here. I like when I see, and this happened the last time too, when I'm presented with this, the presentation, and then also sort of like the criteria and how, how these grants are getting, how the applicants, the applications themselves, and then also the criteria that we're using. I think that they're based on maybe a conversation, probably a conversation I wasn't involved in yet because I wasn't on council or on the board. But when I go back to the plan, I would really like to see more alignment between the plan and the criteria, because I don't really see that. That is the biggest thing that I'm struggling with. When I go to the plan, it goes through all the objectives, and I think we could together come up with a criteria, a rubric, something that actually meets all the things we're talking about. But I think start from there rather than starting from there. Because I think where we are right now, I think all the feedback I'm hearing, and certainly what I feel, is that I don't want to start from where we are. I want to start literally from ground zero. Go back to the plan.
Yeah, or where we want to be, right? Because that's what the plan is. The plan is our end goal. And so it's like just backwards design. How do we build a program that does the things we have in our plan? Yeah, I agree with that. Is there any other, Councilor Schimmel, did you have a comment or?
Well, just between now and the next cycle, we've had some conversation about the district itself, the map, and whether expanding, contracting makes sense, I guess, relative to the plan and what we intended to do, and the opportunities that we might be missing by not stretching it out, or what we're compromising by the size that it is.
Yes, thank you for that, Director Schimmel. Staff will be looking into kind of what plan amendments require and what would be available, and we'll bring that back to the EDC for their consideration.
Is there anyone else on the board that has some final comments for staff? And then also staff, do you have enough for the next work session? You're like, too much. Are we good on the board? Okay, I'm going to adjourn this work session of the Urban Renewal Agency and give a little switch over 2-minute pause. Thank you both.